Alright, so for this misadventure to Grandma's driving to and from there, well, I listened to a bit of the To Sleep in a Sea of Stars, by the Aragon guy, Pellini. Um, I still maintain that I'll listen to like 3 or 4 chapters before like to see if something will catch my interest. If it was me writing this, I would have started off with the whole alien artifact mishap because that gets the mystery going like super quick. Like this is again, it's all just like personal preference and like how I like to write things versus how other people do stuff. Again, it's all personal wheelhouse and preference. Um, I would also list this more as space horror than what is it listed as, like a kind of like a space opera, or what else did they give it? It's a colonization, science fiction, space exploration, and then he went more of a space horror route. Um, because when I was initially listening to the first like 2 chapters, I'm like, why is he introducing all these people? Like, this is a pretty mundane way to start it. And then by the third or fourth chapter equivalency, it's like, oh, okay, so the horrifying like element is bursting out of the lady, and okay, I see. So they pretty much just like at two, and you alien artifacts are basically going to it's not quite like what you call it from Dead Space, not quite like necromorph stuff, but more like this particular artifact element. It looks like it could be like a mixture of bio and mechanical, kind of like what I could tell from this thing that he was pretty influenced by how the Prothean beacon thing worked with Mass Effect and all. Um, I'm seeing where some of this is like, but definite flavor. It's more on the horror side. So if horror is more your thing, it might scratch that itch. But to me, it's also he's fairly heavy on the description side of things. Because if I was actually reading this, I'd probably be skipping half the description stuff to like, okay, where's the forward momentum of the plot? Again, from the looks of it, I'm looking at its physical dimensions. It's like apparently over 800 pages, and with the audiobook, I used one of my tokens, credits to pick up the audiobook, just because I just honestly at this point, if I do get to read anything on the side, half the time it is through the car, going back and forth. Oh boy. But yeah, definitely a lot more horror. Um, to compare my own thing with Uplift Protocol, the only enemies that are going to have that super kind of creepy horror element is the Void Walkers. But eventually, like I've spilled the beans on before, a lot of that stuff will have a happier ending for the good guys overall. It's just the journey to get there that'll be like, oh my, it's filled with this. But yeah, that's the biggest reason why TLDR, like, I'll usually give a book at least, anywhere between 3 and 5 chapters to hook me to see what's going on. Um, but in this instance, I guess if I took a look at the blurb, it might indicate more of a kind of like horror element. But you figure from what a writer's done in the past, the blurb should make things even more blatant, I suppose. Again, just my 2 cents. Take it or leave it. That's about it. Some of the reviews complain about like guys writing women characters. I didn't see too much wrong with how he depicted this Kira person, but it went like more of the trope route of like she was like the ultimate loner, and not because she had a prickly personality. It's just I guess the whole idea of being a xenobiologist in the field type of angle, and as she was getting a little bit lonely, she eventually teamed up with all these guys on various projects. And well, of course, the horror element comes into where it's like, well, they're gone. But I do like the fact that, he doesn't go into tons of descriptions of like the intimate moments. He glosses over some of that. You know what they're doing, but he doesn't go IKEA level. So I guess I can appreciate that. Some people are saying the character development is not great. I don't really know much about that just yet, because again, the handful of opening chapters is basically a setup to where, just like with most horror stuff, like here's the mundane and then here's where the element goes wrong, which also is why I think some books should be very clear about, like, hey, what kind of elements are you mixing together? So that way, if I know horror is going to be one of the main elements, it's like, then it makes sense that you set up with, like, here's the mundane, kind of more happier, stable element, and then you're wondering why, it's like, why is he introducing all these characters to me where I don't really have an attachment to them? Because I didn't really start forming any kind of, like, something's, up, until she encounters the artifact room and all the craziness that was happening in there. So this is honestly, looking at things now that I'm legitimately writing myself, I'm like, oh, so that's why he set things up that way, or used this particular setup over here. And the whole dreaded show versus tell crap is popping up in some of these reviews. But honestly, again, my whole thing with that is like, just do what you're gonna do. Develop your own writing techniques, your toolbox. Some writers are gonna gobble up the show part. Some writers are gonna gobble up the tell part. Some people are gonna prefer, a mixture of both. It's like this one of those things where it's like, it's the hot button topic of the day. But like I was saying earlier, the whole Prothean beacon aspect, that honestly, yeah, he had the same flavor when she started having certain kinds of visions and everything. So that gave me, besides the way certain other elements played out in that later chapter, it's like, oh, okay, so he's definitely going for a more of a body horror bit of thing. And yeah, the writing was kind of on the wall for these guys when the other lady was hacking and coughing constantly, to where she couldn't, dislodge whatever was happening with her. And when all the military guys in their tests weren't finding anything wrong with his crew, it's like, oh, so methinks something. Oh, there it is. Yep. So that's where the aliens aspect with Ripley and crew came into play. But this time there is no survivor, except for, well, from the looks of it, where I left off with the audiobook, Kira herself, essentially. Now, yeah, some people are complaining about, like, the dynamic, like, the woman bossing around the guys, but I didn't get that sense in the opening chapters. Again, I've only gotten up to about chapter 5. But, yeah, in some cases, I think what hurt some of the opening part was, that taking that time to build up, like, way too much. Which I guess can be important for horror, but I've also seen pulp horror that goes wham bam thank you ma'am, and goes from like 1 to 100 in like 5 seconds flat, in equivalency. So there is that too. So I guess I could put this in the little trad setup, because this is a traditionally published book. So, yeah, there is that. So, congratulations, 2021. About halfway through it, and I've managed to pick up one audiobook from Tradland. Yep. See you later, everybody. Oh, and P.S. I can't tell if this is going to end up like the Expanse series. I guess I could do further updates later on. This is just me trying to test out, different wheelhouses to see if anything even remotely connects with me. So yeah, there is that. So you never know. If it does end up like what the Expanse was doing, then I'll definitely tell you. From those few opening chapters, it looks like the humans are going to err on the side of, well, they're not as uplifting in more of a golden age aspect, but I don't know if it's going to go to like Expanse or Berserk level, kind of like down in the dumps. So we'll see.